We have not had anything like that in the history of the United States. So this is an experiment that we've never gone through. And this could easily break not just the US economy, but the entire world economy, since the world runs on US dollars, and the world is indebted to the United States, meaning most of the world debt is in dollars, meaning the world is short dollars. And so when the dollar goes up, the dollar is the highest it's been, I think, in 25 years. So when a dollar hits these kind of levels, it breaks everything around the planet, right? Because countries can't pay their debts, inflation gets out of control, chaos ensues, and so on. So right now there's 40 countries in the world that has double-digit inflation, right? Where we went from a world in which we basically had no inflation, right? Almost everybody in the world had close to zero inflation. So in the span of 2 years, right, we went from everything wonderful to global chaos, war, pandemic, and so on, so on, so on. So I expect to see a lot more carnage and a lot more pain. And I think you heard that from the Fed chairman saying, hey, pain ahead. But I think the amount of pain that is expected is much more than what most people perceive to be, right? So I'm not here to tell you doom and gloom. I'm just explaining to you that, again, that Bitcoin and all other crypto are attached to risk assets. And these risk assets will continue to go down in value as long as the dollar keeps going up and as long as QT continues, right? So we should all be ready for a long winter. And again, Celsius is in relatively safe place, filing Chapter 11 versus a lot of other players who cannot just cease operation or stop or take shelter or anything like that, right? So we may have been the first or the second to jump into safety, but you will see many, many other organizations have the same problem. So, for example, the fourth largest mining pool-in, if you didn't see them, have exactly the same problem that we have with lack of liquidity and inability to provide withdrawals. They paused their withdrawals. Again, that's the fourth largest pool of Bitcoin mining in the world, right? Bigger than Celsius in all terms, right? And so on. So, but I think you will see also the same thing happening with countries and with banks and financial institutions all over the world. So pain is going to be severe, and our job is to fix. We are in reorganization. Our job is to use this time to reorganize the company so we can come out of this, right, when the clouds eventually dissipate, right? We can come out of this stronger with the right systems and people and everything else to go back and restart our business. So like I said before this conversation, we have three parts, right? The first part, we need to return deposits to people who are in custody. Again, we're still working out the details with the U.S. trustee and the UCC and other people who all have they want things done differently, right? So we're waiting for a resolution. The judges to basically agree or come to a consensus on what should be done, and our team will be ready to reopen those wallets and allow those people to withdraw. Unlike what you read in the news or whatever, it's not like we don't want to give coins back or we somehow slowing down the process or anything else. It's in our best interest to allow as many people in custody to get their coins back as fast as possible. We know people are suffering. We want them to have liquidity, and we've done everything we could to provide all the information necessary so this process can get started. And we expect something around the November 1st date as the effective date of when we will we are ready, as the technical team, we were actually ready, I think, the week of September 12th, right? So next week, effectively, we were ready to enable this. But again, the legalese have not been resolved. And it's more about, okay, if somebody took a loan, but their assets in custody, are we allowing them, not allowing them, and so on and so on. So it's a lot of little details that need to be resolved. So custody is number one. The second part is returning the rest of the coins. So will coincide with us reopening, right? But that's a separate chapter, right? So how do we return the coins? Who gets what? What are the denominations? How much did we recover? All those things are still in the works. And again, I presented our plan to both the UCC and to the basically the equity or the people that hold equity in Celsius, right? The people participate in the A round, the B round, and so on. And we're waiting again to get consensus there, to get an agreement between all the parties on what that return looks like. And the sooner the better. We want to basically enable people to get access to their coins. So that's the second chapter. And the third chapter is us reopening our services, right? So we gave it a code name Kelvin, right? Absolute zero. So we're planning to be we're planning to reopen with a process that does not require you to trust us in anything, right? And we're working, again, Guillermo and Oren are leading kind of the requirements and the ideas that are the best things that we can add or provide for our customers to be able to continue using services like Celsius, but not have to trust us with where are the coins, what are you doing with my coins, where are you staking them, and things like that, right? So we'll get into the details. Oren will be presenting in a minute. We had a third day hearing, right? So again, some of you probably listened in, and most of the discussions were around these motions that were filed. And again, I urge all of you to use the Strato and the court system to get your facts from there and not from Twitter and not from other places. I would say that probably 90% of what I read on Twitter is not true or inaccurate or intentionally misrepresenting the truth. As one example, Simon Dixon, who keeps jumping into everything Celsius, recently bought Salt Lending, according to what I've read. So he bought the competitor of Celsius, and he goes on Celsius channels trying to convince everybody how bad things are. So hopefully one day they'll switch over to his service, right? Same thing with other people like Corey Klippstein and others who have a competing business or in the mining business and want Celsius to fail so they'll have less competition and so on. So my point is just that you have to be very careful who you listen to and where you get your facts from. And I urge all of you to stick to what you can be sure that anything we file with the court has been vetted by the best lawyers in the world, both for being factual and for representing the truth. And everything else that is provided is hearsay or allegations, right? So just be very, very careful about that. I heard a lot of employees are concerned about some of these things. So I wanted to dig into that. So we filed the new set of financials. If you haven't seen, Chris provided the court with an update. We do an update every few weeks. And again, if you want to know what the size of the hole is, look at those financials. It hasn't changed. It's not like suddenly it went from $1 billion to $4 billion. Just because somebody says that on Twitter, again, doesn't mean it's true. So our assets, our liabilities are more or less the same. They don't move a lot. And our cash position does change a lot. So our cash position increased because we actually collected something like $61 million. And again, these were assets were recorded as stablecoin, we figure out that they're actually cash. So the cash balance is increased and the stablecoin is decreased a little bit, right? And again, if you were listening to the court proceedings, they use the word, oh, you found money that you didn't know where it was. No, we knew all the time where it was. We just had it categorized as stablecoin versus as cash. So all these things matter. And the company has plenty of cash to continue operations and through next year. And we'll be providing additional updates. And as we recover, we wanted to file the most conservative plans that we can come up with, to make sure that we can only surprise to the upside versus have bad surprises or negative surprises. And I think since we filed, you'll agree with me that has been the pattern, right? We surprised to the positive, not to the negative, both on the cash, on the coins, on recoveries and things like that. So, and that's our intent going forward, right? We're planning to surprise everybody to the positive. Also, we continue to do cost reduction. So as you know, we reduced payroll. We also reduced expenses. I think we're down by almost 2/3. And the more we can kind of bring costs down, the easier it is for us to reopen it. The easier it is for us to show the UCC and other stakeholders that we can continue the business without having problems, without burning cash, right? We hope that we can run the business being a profitable entity. So we right-size the business for these plans to reopen. And what you're going to see from Oren is in the context of the size that we are right now. I think we're at about 270 people, and we plan to stay at this level to be able to reopen and provide the services that we need for our community. Most of our community, including the UCC, has asked us to continue services, right? If you're listening, if you're joining any of the Twitter spaces, or you've heard what the UCC had to say, they want the company to continue, both because there's value in the company and because they think that these services are valuable, and they want to continue using the loans and the staking and the custody and things like that. All right, I think I covered all my points. Oren, I'm handing off to you. I think you have a presentation, so you can share a screen, and we'll take some questions. So post your questions in the chat. I see there's one already, and I'm handing off to Oren.
Thank you, Alex. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see that okay? Well, just somebody message me if you can't, I guess.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. So I think a lot of the times I've been speaking to the company, it's been in my capacity as the Chief Compliance Officer. But for the past few months, I've been working with our product and engineering teams on our product development efforts. And I was thinking a good place to start for talking about how we're thinking about the go forward or what comes next, just to share some of the context for how we're thinking about it.
Just Oren, maybe just give people some background, because again, there's a lot of people who didn't get to meet you, and so just give them a little bit of background of your experience.
Sure. Yeah, been working in financial services for about 20 years. The last 5-6 years in crypto. I've run some crypto exchanges, and I've worked at a bunch of different crypto projects. Before I joined Celsius, I was at Labs. When I joined Celsius, I was initially running innovation, so some of our new products, then compliance, and now working on all of the above. So yeah, hopefully that's some good context. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly if people have questions. I have 2 young kids, so I'm up almost all the time. Okay, Okay, so let me switch back. So on context, and maybe this is a little bit, there's a story involved here, right? There's a common story structure called a hero's journey. Kind of follows a call to action, right? Like this hero has a mission, something that they want to accomplish. They experience some initial success. They stumble, fall short in some way, and have this dark moment, right? And that's kind of like where we find ourselves at this very pivotal moment in the company's journey. And so, we'll talk about like the later stages of this, right? So, persevering through that dark moment, transforming and eventual victory. And so a lot of these themes are things that we're thinking about when we're thinking about how to build, how to go on, how to move forward. So some of the kind of key themes are adversity, uncertainty, right? I think everybody can relate to these things. And what it's going to take to move forward is really perseverance. So how does this apply to us? We obviously grew incredibly fast, faster than it. I've only worked in startups in my career. I've never seen a startup grow as fast as Celsius did. Obviously, there were some lessons learned, some hard lessons learned, but we are at this critical point. And I think like one of the things that we were just talking about this morning with the product team was that if anyone doubts the importance of like where we are and what an important moment this is, the entire world is telling us this every day, right? Headlines in major media, millions of people watching this, clicking on articles online. If you add Celsius to an article, it automatically, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs looking at that article. Hundreds of thousands of customers, regulators, the creditors, and UCC. So tons of people are looking at this. The entire and how this ends, right? How we move forward is going to affect the entire industry. So there's no doubt about the importance, and really the question is like how we respond to it. And I think like something that I think about, I think a lot of people think about on the team is that if we give up now, you're selling at the bottom, right? And the opposite is that if we are successful, it's going to be one of the a success story that like one that's never been seen before, right? I think that there's some really innovative stuff that the team is working on for how we go from here to a victory, and I want to go through that in more detail. So this path, let's switch back. This path to earning trust, I think this is one of the questions that was asked in the chat, was like, well, how are we going to return? How are we going to earn trust? And I think one of the foundational products that we're going to offer in the future is custody. And the core concept of custody is that that's your property and we're holding it on your behalf. And so if that's what we're going to be offering, if that's a core part of what we're going to be offering in the future, we have to show people that principle of this being their property that we're holding on their behalf means that they get it back. And so the first thing that we're trying to do, I mean, Alex referred to this, and I think a lot of people are involved in these projects, in the associated projects, is to restore access to custody accounts. And this is going to happen in multiple stages, like Alex talked about. There's a lot of complexity that gets introduced by attorneys and advisors and courts and other people about like which specific assets within custody are available to customers in what order. So this will be a multi-stage process, but that's definitely like the first part of the process. And then the next part of the process is so what I just talked about here is reactivating custody accounts and associated services. The next part is a crypto-based solution to honoring creditor claims. And we can't get into too much detail at this stage because the proposal is not public, and but Alex did make the proposal and got positive feedback, and this is really, I talked about before about how we resolve this, how we get out, what we do in this pivotal moment can really can be through kind of unprecedented, really innovative solutions, and this is one of them. Is to use crypto infrastructure as the framework for returning or for delivering, allowing our customers to get their claims on the assets that were in the earn program. So this proposal, by the way, is under review by the UCC, and so once we get more feedback from them, we'll be able to talk more about it. And then so the idea is we're storing access to custody. We're also going to propose that we re-enable certain key services. So for customers that have funds in custody, they'll be able to, our proposal is going to be that they'll be able to stake, swap, potentially take loans against those assets, and then make available the assets that were in the earn program through this unique crypto solution that we'll talk more about in the future. And then that brings us to NewCo. So this is basically some people will call it like Celsius 2.0. Alex referred to this as Kelvin for people who are not familiar. Like Kelvin is a temperature system. I should have done my research on this, but like the key thing I remember from school about Kelvin is this concept of absolute zero. And so one of the ideas with Kelvin, with this new Celsius 2.0 and calling it Kelvin, is absolute zero trust involved, right? So in other words, that's one of the kind of principles in crypto in the first place, right? Is that you should be doing your own research. You should be able to verify if things are completely transparent. And that's one of the core attributes that we want to embed in this new code, is making sure that everything that we do is transparent. It's on the blockchain. Customers can see what's happening with their funds. There's no dependency on, they don't have to hope that Celsius is doing the right thing. They can see it. And basically building on top of that, we would offer a new set of services. So I'll talk about just go into some more detail. Actually, before I do that, maybe I'll pause for questions. Any questions so far? Switch over. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question. If we go with this plan live, how this will create a revenue for our company if we start offering custodial services? The gains will not be high as used to be in the past, if I figure out this correctly.
Yeah, I mean, most businesses in crypto today earn fees from a commission on transactions or AUM based, like a percentage of the assets under management. So if you take Binance as an example, they're earning billions of dollars a year in revenues by charging a transaction fee on trading, right? So if we start if the foundation of our business is custody, and our customers are electing to do things like stake somewhere or swap one asset for the other or take a loan against an asset as collateral, we should have the ability to charge a commission for that transaction, right? Or it can come in the shape of a commission as like adding a spread. But yeah, there should be no problem with us generating revenues from this. It's just going to, obviously, we will need to be able to successfully convince customers that Celsius is a place that they can park their assets and have trust. They will have to trust us as a company, but we're going to try to remove as much. We will try to minimize the amount that they have to depend on that, on just trust, because it's going to be blockchain based and they'll be able to verify.
I'm just curious about the trust component of all of this, that haven't we built a business by telling our customers that we're not going to institute fees or charge them to get their money out? And by completely switching our business model to a fee-based, commission-based program, isn't that a violation of the trust of the customers that we got for the first couple of years we were in business? And if, we're going to create this relationship built on trust, are there any concerns about how to model that out from a revenue perspective, this potential lack of trust?
Sure. Yeah. One thing is like,
I can jump in if you want.
Yeah.
Just to, yeah. This is not a new effort. In 2022, we started developing many services that were fee-based. We just didn't have a chance to launch them, but basically everything we're about to launch, including withdrawal fees and transaction fees, and we're all things that were in the making, and we have not seen any problems with customers saying, "Oh my God, if you charge me a fee, I'm leaving you immediately." The opposite. I think a lot of people, there were probably a lot of mistrust because we didn't charge fees, because people couldn't understand, they don't understand what rehypothecation is or other things, and they couldn't even understand in the lending business how we could pay 5% on yield, but only charges 3% per loan for the same asset, right? So this is an opportunity to reset all of that, and again, through the transparency, show everybody that how the math works, where the coin's going, step by step, instead of asking them to trust us with everything the way we've done it in the first 5 years.
Yeah, fees are normal, right? People, when you value something, you're willing to pay for it, right? If we're delivering valuable services, people should be willing to pay for it. And just one thing, like, I want to highlight is, like, there's a very good chance that a lot of customers say, "I'm done, I'm out." And something important there is that, when I was in the innovation role and talking to a lot of companies that were doing stuff that was similar to Celsius, these companies are, have like 10, 20, 30, maybe a couple of them have a couple of $100 million in assets from their customers. If we were to get like 5, 10, 20% of our customers to stay with us, you're talking about starting a company with hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially hundreds of thousands of customers. So, like, right before I joined Celsius, I was at a startup. To start a company with a million people, millions of people looking at, we have like instant awareness. We have a set of customers. We have assets that generate revenue. We have funding, initial funding, right? So we have a lot. It's basically like a startup on training wheels, on some pretty good training wheels. And so I think, like, my point is just that these other small companies that were doing what Celsius is doing, they would kill to start with, these companies that were or are doing what Celsius is doing would kill to have the assets that, like, would be like kind of a worst case scenario for us. So I think it's just something to keep in mind, is that, like, because we hit this high water mark of 30 billion, people think about our business shrinking as the end of the world, while a shrunken version of Celsius is still a bigger business than a lot of the other companies out there, and it's a great position to be in from a startup perspective.
Yeah, just to add to that, I don't know if you guys saw, but Inc. magazine published their list of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in the United States. Do you know who was number one on the list? Anyone? Post it on the chat if you've seen it. Right, so Inc. does a ranking every year of who is the fastest growing company, right? BlockFi was ranked as number one, right? With something like 240,000% growth over a 5-year period. Celsius grew faster than BlockFi. We just didn't apply for Inc. magazine, right? And BlockFi, it went to the same thing, right? BlockFi issued, the two largest lenders to Three Arrow Capital, you can check it on Google, was Genesis at $2.4 billion. They lent $2.4 billion to Three Arrows, and BlockFi with 1.3 billion in loans, right? So one bad decision caused BlockFi to basically almost go out of business. They got bailed out by FTX, and they didn't have to file Chapter 11. But if they were not bailed out, they would be in Chapter 11, just like Voyager and Celsius and everybody else who was stuck in the same situation. But my point is to Oren's, to what Oren was saying before, is that obviously we provided a needed service, and we grew faster than we could manage. We had an opportunity now to reorganize, and I want to stress that like how many of you drink Pepsi versus Coca-Cola? At least a third drinks Pepsi. Raise your hand if you drink. Here we go. We see a few people. Well, Pepsi filed for bankruptcy twice, right? Does it make the Pepsi taste less good? Right? Delta filed for bankruptcy, right? Do you not fly Delta because they filed for bankruptcy? So the point is not, a bankruptcy filing is a test for the company. It's a test of should you come out or should you disappear? And if you want to know if we should come out, just go and join any of the Twitter Spaces or Reddit or other channels in which the Celsius community is talking to each other about Celsius. All right, Zach, one of our ex-employees, had a session yesterday. There were something like 700 people on it, and people were basically, they had more camaraderie than we sometimes have inside the company. Okay, supporting each other and asking for obviously the company to reopen. So they could have access to the coins, but also asking us to continue the servicing, asking us to continue this movement. So if you're in doubt, listen to the community, because we've built this company for them, right? And yes, we had some mistakes. Yes, we had. If you read my declaration, I bear it all out there. But this is our opportunity to fix the things that we've done wrong, to fix some things in the business model that were not necessarily operating properly, and relaunch perfectly, right? So Apple, in 2001, I received this award, the Einstein Award for Innovation. And the guy next to me who received the award, also another award from the same institution, was the inventor of the CCD, or the cameras you all use on your, right? The device inside each one of these cameras is a CCD. So Gil Amelia, who's the inventor of that, was the CEO of Apple. And he already drafted the paperwork to file Chapter 11, right? Apple almost filed Chapter 11. Don't believe me? Google that, right? Steve Jobs jumps in, right? He saves the company, cuts the products by 80%. He goes to his arch enemy, Microsoft, and gets a loan from them to keep going, right? And now it's one of the most valuable companies in the world, right? So that filing or almost filing Chapter 11 is just a test. It's a test to see if you should exist. Do you belong in the business world? Are you going to do good or not? And this is exactly what we're facing right now, right? We're facing that test of, are we going to come out of this stronger, like Apple, or are we going to be in the dustbin of companies that were great or almost great or great for a while, but disappear, right? The community is behind us. I have no doubt that we'll have plenty of assets to manage. The question is, are we going to give them the products they need, the services they need? Are we going to design them properly? Are we going to avoid other mistakes and learn from the mistakes of the past? And all right, Oren, I cut you off, but did you have? Were you done or no? Or you have more?
Yeah,
slides?
I can go through some more.
Yeah, sorry. I was just.
If people have other questions, just.
Oren, she has the questions like in the chat box.
Okay, cool. Assuming we'll open business, citizens gain trust of employees and community. Yeah, I think really here, I should just throw this on the screen again. Sorry.
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. So I do have a question. Firstly, I posted it in the chat. Firstly, it's really nice to hear that there's so much optimism for us to keep on working, let it be at Celsius or any other name. However, one of the main issues is that me personally, it doesn't sound so far like anything. It sounds like how it was at the beginning of Celsius. Like all of the promises of transparency and all of that, it's like, it sounds like the beginning of Celsius, and it's undisputable that Celsius is one of the most, if not the most, rapid growing companies in our time. However, it doesn't sound like there is, I don't understand how are we supposed to treat it? Like, what is it? What would be the service? How you guys are gonna gain back our trust as employees who saw their friends, sometimes even family, getting booted out because of mistakes that were done? I just don't hear that. And this is something that really personally bugs me.
Yeah, I mean, I was, before this presentation, last night I was looking at rereading our white paper, before I joined the company. And something like, to your point, is like, the reason why the company was started still exists, right? Like that problem still exists. No one has solved that problem. As far as I can tell, no one is really interested in solving that problem. And I bet it's one of the things that like motivated me to join Celsius, and still motivates me, right? Is that I feel like a lot of other companies in crypto are just trying to build the same old thing that exists in financial services, but with a crypto sticker on it, and versus like what we are trying to do is something really different. But to your point, like we said, we were going to do these things in the beginning, and it didn't work out that way. And I think that's the part about learning a lesson, trying things not working, learning the lesson, and hopefully doing a better job the next time. And I think, just one thing is that there have been huge advances in the technology and also like the building blocks in crypto that will make us more able to deliver on some of these things than was possible in the past, right? And there were not, for example, secure multi-party computing, SMPC, existed in the past, right? But there are new technologies built on top of that could allow us to deliver really unique things, like where we can have custody of an asset, but still allow the user to be in control of that asset. And that's technology that was developed by the Celsius X team. But I'm just saying that like some of these things that prevented us from delivering the stuff that was talked about in the white paper are much easier to accomplish now because those building blocks are there. And I think that's a fundamental difference is both like the willingness of us to do it. And I think now we have that motivation to make sure we do it right this time. And then the second part is that the tech is there, right? Before we would have had to build everything. Just remember, I think when the company started, I think Aave was around. It was called ETHLend or something like that, right? But there were not like a lot of these things didn't exist.
They had 5 million in AUM, so when we started. But to add to what Oren is saying, so most of us at Celsius are kind of, I would say, sophisticated or heavy users of crypto. How many of you know how to set up a multi-sig cold storage wallet? Right. So if I want to store my coins, but I want to have multiple signatures, multiple signers for security reasons, and who do I trust to be the other multi-sig? Like Vitalik has this.
Two of the members of our security team raised their hands. So
right.
So there's two out of
yeah. So Vitalik, for example, has one of the signers is his father, and has other signers that he hasn't disclosed, but basically has, I think, 6 signers for anyone to move coins from his ETH wallet, right? So this is an example of a service that we want to provide in our custody solution, right? That's one of the reasons why we partner with GK8 and so on, is to as a native, as a instant, you open a wallet at Celsius, you automatically get a multi-sig. We're a signer, you're a signer, and we have a third party that we both trust for security reasons, right? Or dispute resolution, or all kind of other things. So again, if you want to bring 1 billion people into crypto, and that's the only thing that's going to make these coins go up. If you heard the beginning of my speech, right, with the dark clouds that are headed towards the world's economy, right? Eventually people will say, oh, I can't trust the dollar, I can't trust the euro, I can't trust all these other things, but it hasn't happened yet, right? So today, if you do a chart of the dollar, you will see that Bitcoin does exactly the opposite. If the dollar goes down, Bitcoin goes up, and if the dollar goes up, Bitcoin goes down, right? So we need to, again, bring all these people in. One of the key things, to Oren's point, that we haven't solved, no one has solved, is key management, right? One of the reasons we filed Chapter 11 is because Fireblocks lost our keys for ETH, right? So all these things, even us and Fireblocks have problems managing keys, right? And Stakehound and so on and so on. So this is not something simple. It sounds like it's simple. It sounds like, people solved it 10 years ago. But the reality is that we haven't. And if we, the pros, can't manage it, then how many people out there can manage it, right? 20% of all Bitcoin holders lost their keys, right? So you can't have an industry. Imagine, again, that everybody has to manage their own keys, right? Just not a sustainable proposition. So we're going to reopen the things that we do best, right? Again, custody, staking, loans, right? Simple things that we're already doing, and build on top of it, but they will have certain benefits that people don't have today. And again, we don't plan to provide it for free. You want the multi-sig, you'll pay $50 a year or something like that to have that set up in the Celsius environment.
I want to just flash something on the screen, and just to talk about, just for a second, why, I was talking about the claims solution that we have and why we can't talk about that. And this is with my compliance officer hat on. I've mentioned this in the past, is that because some of these things are in discussion with regulators in the UCC and other people. If we present this stuff, to the company, and someone takes a screenshot and posts it or somehow releases this information, that can seriously and negatively impact those discussions, right? It can basically cite, a regulator or somebody might hear of this and say, wait a second, you guys are thinking about doing what? And so that's why we're not going to be able to share some details about this until we get further along in those discussions. So I just want to explain why I can't go into detail on some of these things. But if people have questions, please send them, and then so we know what to provide updates on as soon as we can share that. But I hope that makes sense to everybody why, right? So what I do want to show though quickly, and then so I blocked out.
Just to add to that, we have to file everything with the court. So it's not like this will be done in secrecy or anything like that. We will be filing the minute us and the UCC agree, or the UC are the 7 unsecured creditors or people that hold coins on Celsius that represent all of our customers. The minute they agree to the plan, right, we will file together a joint proposal. The judge has to approve it, other people have to approve it, and it will go effective. So you will see that filing. And again, we're trying to get all that stuff done. I think in the last all hands we did, we showed you kind of the timeline. It's also on Twitter, right, of what happens when in the bankruptcy process. So we have 120 days to file a plan, and we're trying to file that plan with the UCC, with our creditors, not just file a Celsius plan. And so that's kind of like the timeline that we're expecting. We might ask for more time, but we're trying to get that done in the first 120 days. Go ahead, Doran.
Yeah, I was just gonna just maybe talk briefly about the NewCo again. Let me just put this on the screen again. Sorry. There we go. So one of the important things, I think like an important thing to address, like on the phone with everybody, is like some people will say, well, why don't we just give everything back? Convincing customers to come again, trying to earn their trust, it's too big of a challenge. We shouldn't do that. And so first of all, like if, again, I think a lot of people join Celsius because you're motivated by the mission, right, of giving people who normally wouldn't have access to some of these financial products, access to them, right? So that's mission number one. This new mission that we have is basically that if we just take everything we have now and sell it and try to give people back their money, give people back what they have, what we have, it's not enough, right? And so we need, our second mission now is we have to be successful with this new company in order for us to maximize how much we can return back to our previous customers, and also, to fulfill the mission that we have for the company, right? So like this, I just want to emphasize this, that it's like us making NewCo successful enables us to deliver on our obligations to our customers, right? So it's not, again, like that, what I said at the beginning about this pivotal moment, like walking away from this is selling at the bottom and everybody loses, right? And so this NewCo is really about fulfilling our obligations and also continuing on our journey towards this mission of expanding access to financial services. And then I will switch, here we go. So this, I'm blocking out some of the later phases here, but just to give some specifics, obviously we talked about the first phase is going to be restoring access to custody accounts. We'd like to also, shortly after that, offer staking. We have a bunch of stakeable assets. We'd like to offer our customers a way to do that. And then in the next phase, start to re-enable some of these services like swap, on-ramps, cross-chain bridging, which is kind of a default, kind of table stakes. And there's some other things here that we'll get into more detail on in follow-up presentations. We have about 8 minutes left if people have other questions. Let's see, I think there are some questions there. Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a question about when we can expect this to go live. Actually, there's something. So one of the things that is conveyed to me, that I feel the urgency of, is our need to exit Chapter 11. Maybe that's obvious to most people, but I think this is really important. So why do we need to get this plan together, get it approved, and get it executed? It's because every day that we're in Chapter 11, we're spending a lot more money than we should be on advisors and attorneys and court, all these different costs. The longer we're in Chapter 11, the deeper the hole we're digging, right? So the motivation to get this new thing up and running should be high, because if we want it to be successful, we need to go back to we need to move towards a more sustainable cost, which means we need to get out of Chapter 11. So if you don't feel the urgency today of getting these things done and exiting, I'm trying to share the reason why it's so important. And so in terms of the timing, it's basically as soon as we get the plan together, as soon as we start executing, as soon as we get the approvals necessary, that's what will dictate when we can exit and when we can launch these things. But I think that Alex sent out a summary of the third day hearing. We submitted a motion for the first phase of the custody withdrawal, restoring access to custody, and I would just guess that it's going to be sometime around November when that actually is approved and we're able to flip the switch and turn things on. And then Anbar asked about rebranding. I certainly think so, but this is one of the many questions that needs to be answered.
Yeah, we would like the community to tell us if we should rebrand or not. So one of the things the plan is to use Cell Token much more heavily in kind of governance, and these are the type of things that we would want people to vote, people that hold Cell Token to vote on. So those are going to be many questions we'll be asking the community going forward. All right, so, and I agree on the comments that all sugary drinks are not good for you. So it was just, an easy example, but focus on institutional clients. Again, I think unlike what you read everywhere, we have not seen the institutional customers show up. So I think everyone who just focused on institutional had a hard time, and anyone who focused on retail became one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, right? So we don't want to fix what's not broken. Retail is the story. We just need to stop doing the things that we didn't do well, areas where we lost money or we couldn't execute well, and do more of the things that we've done very well, right? Retail loans, right? They were all over collateralized. We never had a problem there. Our customers love that service. Those are the things we want to continue doing. Emphasize staking, another example, custody, a big problem that exists out there. So those are core services that I think everybody needs. And we can easily build on top of that with additional things that we're adding, that we're developing. But the key thing, like Oren said, is to basically reopen, right? Return coins, allow people who want to withdraw or want to leave to exit. We're not going to try to keep people that don't want to be with Celsius. We did have, I would say, probably at least half of the people using Celsius were not here for the mission. They were just here to take the coupon or the higher yield, I would say, that Celsius was providing. And this doesn't mean we have to service them, right? For a lot of these smaller accounts, we probably lost money on them because they were just not using loans or not using some of the services where we had income, right? So it's definitely, we're going to be much more focused and much more narrow. And I think it will be a better version of what we did in the first 5 years. Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody for your hard work. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of requests, urgent stuff, last minute. But just remember those three key things that we're doing. Returning custody, that's going to happen before November. And then reopening the services and providing access for people for their coins, right? You'll see the plan, the go-forward plan. You'll see the plan for providing access and basically, again, we want to get there as quickly as possible, but we want to get there organized. We want to use this time that we have right now to fix a lot of the operational and other issues that we had. Migrate, for example, from spreadsheets to Snowflake and other systems that we're building, right? So we can automate a lot of the things that we're using. And this is the time to do it, right? When we are in this relatively sheltered place compared to what I think a lot of other people are going to go through. So again, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. We'll be doing this weekly going forward. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Ola.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex.